money for sump pumps from New York City and ultraviolet systems. And I own a duplex in that area there. And unfortunately, I don't live there. It's not owner occupied. Now, in your letter I got, I see you said some things about there may be other money available, and if you earn more than 150% of the income, or if your house is worth more than $250,000, but nothing was mentioned about it not being owner occupied.
We don't know what the criteria will be that will be established by any of these other programs. So in your particular case, unfortunately, you're not going to be eligible for the state program because you don't live in the home. However, I would encourage you to submit the application.
I already did.
Okay, we'll keep it on file, and if one of these other programs allows a non-owner occupied use to be eligible, then you'll fall into that pile.
Okay.
Sir?
John, my name's Tom Wood, over in Wawarsing, the city parks everybody.
Could you use the mic, please?
You mentioned, there's $3.6 million in this fund right now, right?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Tom, could you turn that on?
Right.
Like, just push it up.
So,
Okay.
I understood before, that the state had around approximately $5 million in this fund, and the city was gonna put 3.7 with it. Now, I don't know, it seems to me that this fund is kinda going downhill since the beginning of time.
The agreement that we received from the state of New York indicates $3.6 million, okay? If there are any other funding programs, they will come after that, and that will be part of a negotiated agreement. If the city kicks in money, I can't say what that number is going to be at this point in time. I can tell you the agreement that we received from the state of New York stipulates $3.6 million.
Well, that's a far cry from where it started off with.
They are.
I'm Ira Stern, New York City. New York City is going to be matching the state funds, and we've been working with Ulster County on finalizing our contract between us.
Excuse me, would you speak up, please?
Sure. My name is Ira Stern. I'm a regional manager with New York City DEP. New York City is going to be matching the New York State funds for this program. And we've been working, as Art just said, with Ulster County on a contract that will enable city funds to be used in this program. So, just so it's clear how much money we're talking about, as per Tom's question.
Again, we want to ensure that the funding that's available will be spread as far as possible.
How long do you anticipate the process will take of reviewing your applications and then choosing your initial block of homes to assess?
The review will probably take several weeks, okay? We anticipate that we will receive a lot of applications. I will tell you that as of today, we've received 20, okay?
Mine's one of them.
Okay, but what we will do is conduct a very careful, methodical review, make sure that people that have applied do meet the criteria for whatever programs are available, okay? And then move forward from there. Okay? Believe me, we are not going, we have not and are not going to drag our feet throughout this process. We have requested originally the state deadline to respond to them was in late September. There was no way that we could do that. So they have granted us an extension to the end of November. And I'm sure that as we show them what work we have done and how we're progressing, I don't think it's going to be a problem to get an extension from there. Okay. After that point, it will continue to take time. You know, it depends on the time of year. You know, some of the work would be fairly easy to do over the winter months. We can do the title searches, we can do the appraisals, we can do the environmental reviews, okay? But if we actually, and you know, in an extremely aggressive and an extremely optimistic light, we're not gonna be actually moving forward with demolitions during, until, sometime next year. Sir?
How long would you give the people, if the person is accepted, how long would that person have to move out of his home and find something else?
You would know as the process is moving forward. And I'll go back to the homes that we had worked with. These people knew, okay, we are at this point. We had somebody come in to our home, they did an appraisal. Then we had somebody else come into our home, they did an environmental assessment. You know as we're progressing. Then what we would do is we would establish a date, assuming that everything went forward, establish a date for a closing. The closing would be similar to any other closing that takes place. And, we would sit down. It would not come as a surprise. No one would be kicked out of their house. But by the same token, once we get to that point, we're gonna wanna move forward because as our timeline goes, we will be negotiating with a demolition contractor. Obviously, we're gonna get a much better price if that contractor knows he's going to go into a certain neighborhood and do, multiple homes.
I understand that, but the people in this room right here, right now, actually, every one of us, as far as the buyout goes, whether we're gonna take it or not, everybody's in limbo, because we don't know what's gonna happen, and we don't know if we're gonna be up for the buyout or not. Some of us might have to fix up our homes a little bit for winter, and so on and so forth. Everybody's more or less held in limbo here.
Okay? At this point in time, I would have to recommend to you that you make sure you winterize the house, okay? While we're gonna move forward as expeditiously as possible, you are gonna be in that house through the winter. Whether you're number one on the list and, everything moves forward at lightning speed, you're gonna be in the house for the winter. Sir?
How's the town gonna go about picking up the taxes that they're gonna lose from losing all these houses? They're used to having taxes, if they're gonna lose
How about we
30,
make it
40
easier
houses,
for them?
who's gonna
Start
pay?
now half and then take the rest later.
Is that gonna double the taxes of the people that stay?
No.
Or are you gonna continue to pay, is it just gonna drop the tax?
So, that's an issue that the board is going to have to address, loss of tax revenue. Of course, if the property is turned over to the county, we don't get any tax for that property.
Right, so you lose money.
And it's going to be a
It
problem
costs the
that-
town money in the long run.
That's correct.
So shouldn't they owe the town some money for the
Well, I had an
next
issue with the county.
40 years
I have-
from tax loss?
Yeah, I had an issue with the county taking over the property, because if the tunnel is ever repaired, like he had mentioned earlier, the county can go and sell the property. So at some point, am I correct on that, Art?
No. We can sell the property at any point in time. However, there will be an easement attached to that property that it can never be built on again.
I
Okay?
understand.
Even if the tunnel is repaired, okay, the property cannot be built on again.
Structurally,
But if it's
no structure can be put
no
on.
structure.
But it
Correct.
can be used as, for example, farmland or something else.
Absolutely.
So potentially you have a sale of, let's just throw an example, 1,000 acres, and I'm being ridiculous about
Right.
it, but 1,000 acres worth of land in the town that could be used for farmland, and a farmer might come here and, like the state has done recently, and now the county gets that money and the town gets nothing, both in taxes we get nothing and nothing of sale.
Well, if a farmer put it back on the tax rolls, then the town would start to recoup
Correct,
money at
point,
that
but all the
rate.
years between and the sale of the property, we get nothing.
Yeah.
And that's based on the state's rules of this? or
Correct.
this is
Correct.
Nothing to do with the county?
Correct.
And there's no-
I mean, this is an expensive proposition for the town and the county as well. From a county perspective, we have to insure it, we have to maintain it, we have to provide security for it, and there's no additional county taxes being received off of that property either, okay? So, in addition to that, all of the parcels, as I said, that don't go through and ultimately result in a sale that is, demolished, we're on the hook for all of those costs. So it's not a it's not a total win-win for Ulster County. This is truly advantageous for people that are in harm's way, that have no other option, and this is the only way that they can get out of the sale of their house.
Hey Art, I know Ira's here and talking about a partnership between the state and New York City. Is that correct? Okay. Well, if that happens and they use some of the money from DEP to purchase these houses, I consider that non-restricted money.
What we're talking about here tonight is the program as I've described it. We don't know what may or may not ultimately be in a final agreement between the city and the county. Right now, this is the program that's on the table.
But when these both agreements come in at the same time?
The state agreement is in place today.
Ira said his agreement is ready also. Am I right?
Yep, it has to go through New York City Law Department and New York City Controller before I can say that it's a final deal.
And your program does not take money from the state.
It's all city funds that Ulster County is going to use to implement the program.
Okay, so just to be somewhat obnoxious about it, but I'm going to anyway.
That's okay.
So now with his program, the rest of New York State pays for a problem that DEP has created. Your program, DEP, fixes the problem that they created. Am I oversimplifying it, or am I pretty much accurately stating it?
What's your question?
Is the difference between your program and his, with his program, and I say his meaning what Art's talking about, the state, meaning every resident in New York State who has nothing to do with the aqueduct, has no benefit of the aqueduct, pays a portion of this out of their taxes, as opposed to with your program, 100% of it comes from the funding from the people who benefit from the water, who get the water, and created the problem with the water. Am I accurate?
The city funds we're matching the state funds. So you have twice the amount of money available for this program with the city funds. In addition, the agreement in principle will provide money to pay for Ulster County's costs to implement the program, including maintenance. There's money in there for maintenance and whatever taxes Ulster County needs to pay in the time that the property is still on the tax rolls. So the agreement in principle does include money to cover Ulster County's expenses in running the program. So if the city money wasn't there, you'd have half the money, and the Ulster County taxpayer would have to pay for all the costs of implementation.
And
This is what
the difference between the program that you have not got through yet, but potentially will, we have two more people, two levels to go
Strictly
through.
city money.
Strictly
Yes.
city money.
Is it accurate to say that your program is, there's no restrictions on it like there is with the state? As far as the income levels and these other things, because that's what I've been hearing.
Are you gonna have
Do you want me to answer that, Dennis?
My sense is in all due respect to the town board members, I would hope that we could get questions settled from those folks that essentially need to do the applications and get those in, get them in on time, and then we would be more than willing to spend time with the town board and the city together to answer those questions as well. But we'd really like to try to hear from those folks that essentially have questions about making sure that they understand the program and can move forward with respect to that.
But I really would like to say that the city funds will be available for purchases of properties that don't meet some of the criteria for income, value, and primary residence. So it will enable more homes to be purchased that don't meet the state criteria. That's good.
So you'll have your own guidelines, you want the income cap and all that stuff won't work?
Ulster County is running the whole program. It's just that the city funds will allow Ulster County to have more flexibility than if it only had state funds.
So if I don't meet their eligibility, I'm not gonna meet yours then.
That's not what I'm saying.
I think what we have to do is we have to wait for the details to be ironed out between the city and the county. This agreement in principle was consummated today, okay? So there are details that need to be worked out, and that's not gonna happen here tonight. What I really do wanna do is to give you the opportunity to ask questions about the program that is here before you tonight, and to encourage you to fill out your application and submit it.
I really feel for all the people who have water in their basement, ruined homes, and I've had to live there for years. in that condition.
We don't have it available.
But for myself, I don't have a basement. I don't have flood damage, but I have a compromised well. My property is compromised. Am I gonna walk out in my backyard and fall into a sinkhole? The value of my property has been compromised. I can't sell it. I can't move away. And
If the
so
damage to your property is due to seepage, okay, and the damage to your well, making it, you know, for all intents and purposes, uninhabitable for that reason, fill out the application, please.
There's nothing in that agreement that says anything about compromised water supply.
Right.
Nothing at all.
Everything will be ranked, and if your home is damaged, obviously that's gonna have a higher weighted value than if it's just the water supply. If it's the water supply and the home and the septic, again, the value of that is going to be even greater.
But when you say that only 18 homes are likely to be, involved in the buyout, you're
I'm just,
basically saying people are not going to be.
I took that from the results of the first round of the buyout program. We had $2 million in the first round of this buyout program. We purchased 10 homes, okay? There was a little bit left over to give back to the state. It wasn't enough to purchase another home and to do an 11th, okay?
How many homes were there out of the 10?
We purchased 10 and
How
demolished
many
them.
were involved? The 10 that you purchased, how many more were there?
We started out with 40 to 50, whittled it down through people that didn't meet the criteria or people that walked away. There was only one home that remained that we couldn't fund that wished to participate, that we didn't have funding for. Okay, but that was just, it was a matter of math. That's what I'm using there. We had $2 million, we expended, we took it as far as it would go. In that particular case, it wound up being 10 homes, okay? So I'm just using the same, we may have homes of lesser value, we may have homes of greater value. So I'm just, as an approximation, I'm saying that about 200,000 for the value of the home, to do the other work, to do the demo.
The question is, you said there was one house you couldn't buy.
Correct, sir.
Because they apparently didn't meet whatever.
No, there were several of those. There was one house that still wanted to participate that we didn't have enough money left to do.
Well, what happens to a home that's in the middle of all this, that won't be eligible for a buyout? What do the people do? Just live there the rest of their lives and the rest of their land all around them?
And unfortunately, that is the reality.
You gotta be kidding.
There are places, again, it's a willing seller. If a person doesn't,
Would you buy it?
we have situations in the first round where literally someone on each side sold out, the person in the middle didn't, okay? It has to be a willing seller. For our purposes, would it be much easier to have a large piece of land, a large tract that perhaps could be used as a farming or whatever use? Of course it would. We're not gonna force anyone out of their homes. If they choose not to sell, and you have a postage stamp
That was
sign.
if they choose. You said that if they didn't meet the
Criteria.
Right, if they don't meet the criteria,
that you're not gonna buy that person out, you're gonna
We
leave that
can't.
person away.
we can't.
Well, what is
There's
it?
state legislation that says what we have to follow.
That's way out of line.
What's your criteria?
What does that one person, that one home do when all the land around them has been condemned? And you're gonna tear all them houses down, and here's just this one guy, just because he didn't meet your criteria.
It's not Ulster County's criteria. It's the state of New York.
Well, whoever. If
Okay.
you're gonna take a chunk of land and you're gonna demolish them homes, why would you leave one home set?
It's not my choosing.
Well, you
We-
need to find out that.
No, I know why, because it's written into New York state law. Do I agree with it? No. Okay? Is it common sense? No. But it's New York state law. That's the program, that's what we have to follow. Ma'am?
I have one question. It's costing us, every time we flood, that last bill we paid was over $500 by running pumps, buying gas for the gas pumps. How long can we keep this up? We're on Social Security, you know, $500 a month is a lot of money with the last storm, just to keep the water out of the basement. True. Thank you.
Understood. Okay, understood. So, have you filled out your application?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Again, people that, the most needy will move to the top of the list.
So until then, you should spend $500 a month.
Well, that's not necessarily true. The most needy, or is it the big bang for the buck? I mean, you're contradicting yourself every time you say whether, you know, here we have a limited amount of funds.
Correct.
You're trying to get the big bang for the buck, yet you just said that it's conditioned, when we've been fighting for condition of homes, and we've been told that that's not the issue. That absolutely needs to be the issue, and every single one of my neighbors can tell you the same thing, that it's difficult living under these conditions every time that we flood, regardless of whether your home is worth or valued at the current market value of $100,000 or $300,000. It has to go by condition.
The conditions have been established by the state of New York. We're obligated to follow those.
Okay, so now it looks like we need to go to the steps of Andrew Cuomo's office in Albany and protest the conditions of this bill, because it's obvious that not even everybody, never mind the people that didn't make it to this meeting, not even everybody in this room is going to be taken care of, whether they qualify, which I'm sure just about everybody qualifies, or whether you're meeting the criteria, you're still not going to fulfill the hopes that we have of getting out of these homes because we're being flooded by the leaking aqueduct.
I completely understand that you want to get out of your home, and this may be the only or best opportunity to do that. However, we have to follow the state law that was, it's not a bill, it is now a law. It was approved by the Assembly, the Senate, and signed by the governor. This is the program.
What year was that?
It was approved this year.
Well, all this started in '04, '03.
Right, but it was finally promulgated this year.
One of the things I would say is that the negotiations that are taking place with respect to DEP and Ulster County is to make sure that some of these program rules are relaxed or eliminated with respect to the use of DEP funds. Income levels, primary residence issues, issues associated with how we rank seepage. All of those things are part of the discussions that are there, and that's part of where we are in terms of agreement in principle. So I go back to the sense that I want to leave you with is go back is to fill out the applications. Let us go through the process that we need to have to go through, and let's focus on what we can do to help those that need the help, and not focus on essentially issues that may or may not come into problems as we move forward. Right? We have a finite amount of money. We can't change that. We have program rules. We can't change that. We are working to try to find alternative sources of funds, both on the FEMA side and on the DEP side, to make sure that we can maximize the effort here to get as many of you folks that want to participate out of harm's way. You have that pledge. We continue to do it. We'll promise you to absolutely positively continue to do it.
So here we sit working around New York State rules, so it's actually Bloomberg's problem. I mean, I think DEP is getting away with murder with this. I mean, they're cutting in half. I mean, the state shouldn't be paying nothing to begin with. I mean, Irish should be opening up his checkbook for everybody else that's not even getting bought out. I mean, we're happy that the state's kicking in and helping us, but, you know, this is sitting on, New York City. I mean, you know, Bloomberg should be standing up there with arguments explaining this. Maybe he should be at a meeting.
It's not murder yet, but it will be soon. Somebody is gonna
I
get
mean, you
somebody.
know, we thank you guys for going through this, but, you know,
Right.
Jesus Christ, man, I mean, they're getting away with murder.
Also,
Quite
I'd like to
certain,
know, is the
anybody
town
in this
putting-
room that wanted to relocate, I've been here for 52 years. I've been looking to relocate since I was 20. Well, I wound up in my parents' house because the price was right. And back in 2000, when houses were moving out of here, I looked and looked and looked. And for what my house is worth, I cannot find another house like that. That's why I'm here. So how about some of us that have been here and want to stay here, give us a quarter of what our house is worth and let us keep the house. Or give us all what the house is worth since you've destroyed our entire area, and still let us keep the house and drain out that round out stream. The thing is full of mud. You might think all the water's coming up from the bottom. The water pools up on Fordmore Road and it leaches back. And it soaks in the ground and it gets together with a ton of water, and yeah, you're in a mud hole. If you don't, I don't mean you personally, I mean anybody involved with that round out stream, those cornfields are gonna continue to get flooded out. They're not even gonna be able to use them because it takes less of a storm now to flood them than it did 2 years ago. We get 3 or 4 days of heavy rain, those cornfields are gonna be underwater. It's not on you.
I don't
It's
disagree
on
with you.
Anybody.
No.
Something needs to be done. There's at least 6 houses on the opposite side of the road from me that do not have a flood problem until the lake at Lippman Park overflows and flows right into their basement. And the town should use that lake as a small scale model of what should be done with that reservoir. Lower the lake, put in the drainage. If it doesn't work, it'll have to help. It's not gonna hurt the problem any.
I realize that the problem that you folks are experiencing is you live it every day. But I talk to people across this entire county, and the problems that you're experiencing, the problems with debris, whether it be woody debris or cobble, is the same in every town. And streams need to be cleaned. They need to have debris removed. And it's a huge problem. And none of us have the answer for it, okay?
Army Corps of
but it's just-
Engineers. From Mackinac to Accord, they need to take a ride with their bulldozer, do the same thing they did with the stream in Ellenville. It made 100% difference.
Sorry.
I pump 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Not just when it rains, not just when a hurricane comes. It's there, summer, night, winter. My pump is always going. Do we know how many people are in the same category?
No,
How
but
many
once,
people, just because it rains, they have to pump, or do they pump when it's a perfectly sunny day for a whole month? I still pump water out of my basement.
that
I've
was the
actually raised my floor 4 inches so I can let the water run around the outside, and thank God the neighbor lets me tie into a storm drain. And even with that, I pump 24 hours a day.
that
It
particular
gets
situation.
worse during the rains, and it gets worse during the
Yes.
hurricanes. But it ain't coming from the ground. It's not the hurricane causing my problem. The water's there, and it's just, it may come up more, and I have to, you know, the pump goes on and off every 20, 30 seconds versus 4 or 5 minutes.
That situation is why one of the questions on the application is how many days per year do you experience problems from seepage?
Okay, I put 365, and you can come down and look at me. You can look at the water. But I've lived with it for a lot of years.
For those people who live outside the 2-mile area, okay, like ourselves, we've been flooded out of our homes twice. And we had to use about $50,000 of our own money to rebuild so we can get back into the house. We can't get FEMA assistance this time because we didn't maintain flood insurance, which we couldn't afford. Now, is anything being done for people like us?
This particular buyout program was written such that you're within 2 miles of the aqueduct, your problem emanates from seepage, and if there's enough money left over, they will allow us to go out and address flood issues and not seepage issues.
really